Okay, then we're ready. Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was how our posture affects how long our muscles in our neck and our shoulders will withstand uh, the kinds of work that we're doing, and also what kinds of placement of our keyboard will help us. I'm going to stand for most of this, but of course you'll be sitting. The one thing that you want to remember is that if you can place your monitor at eye level, then your head doesn't have to lean forward. Your head weighs as much as a bowling ball. So if your head is forward, the muscles that attach to your shoulders and to the back of your head have to be constantly working. If you're looking forward, these muscles can relax. They don't get as tired. The upper trapezius muscle group normally is one of the strongest muscles in the body, but it has one of the shortest periods of use without creating some pretty severe pain problems. Trigger points are knots that occur in the muscles. Everybody gets them from time to time. And the knots in the upper trapezius can give you some severe headaches. Sometimes they feel like they're right behind your eyes. If you've ever had the type of headache where it feels like a spike is trying to come out through the back of your eyeball, it's probably a trigger point in the upper trap. The other thing that will affect the upper traps is the position of the arms. So if your arms are out in front of you and you're reaching for your keyboard, you're going to be using these muscles constantly. You can actually feel how active they are by pressing on that muscle while your arm is out here. If you bring your arm back to where your elbow is directly underneath your shoulder, this muscle can hang. It can be relaxed. So the best way to place your keyboard is to have a placement where your arms can be, your forearms can be parallel to the floor and your elbows can be directly underneath your shoulders. In fact, the perfect position is right. This is a terrible setup, and if you had to do this day in and day out, you'd probably be seeing some doctor for chronic pain. So you want to try to find a way to adjust your workstation so that you don't have to work in that situation for long periods of time. Now, again, you want to think about your ear, your shoulder, your elbow, and your hips being in a straight line, perpendicular to the floor, your forearms being parallel to the floor. That will cut down on most problems. When you do develop active trigger points in the shoulder area, your shoulder muscles are already fatigued. And if this happens for many different times during your lifetime, the muscles will actually shorten. And so it'll be more comfortable for you to have your arms up rather than down. The problem is, again, that these muscles don't have a long period of time that they can stay active without fatiguing. So muscles in the neck area, called scalene muscles, try to help them out, try to help lift your shoulders. They do that by attaching to the back of the skull and the vertebrae in the neck, and then down into the first rib, which is right underneath your collarbone. So they lift your collarbone by lifting the first rib that's underneath it, pressing it up. When they do that, they compress the brachial nerve that goes down into your arm and the brachial artery, so you lose circulation in your hands, and you oftentimes feel pain in the forearm and stiffness in your fingers. Has anyone had that ever?
I got out of production work. I mean, start teaching partly because I was spending about 60 to 70 hours a week on the computer and not taking enough breaks and stretching, and that kind of got me after 2 years.
Right. So, and I think it happens more if we've been in the business for a while. And Even using a stapler can be bad if your stapler is not in the right position. I worked with a woman who worked for a bank, and she would enter data from checks, and then she had to reach back like this and staple them because the cord on the electric stapler was so short. So she'd do this, and of course tightening up this muscle. She ended up being laid off from work. She had surgery. She had all sorts of things. She came in to see me for biofeedback, and we simulated that activity while she was hooked up to electromyography equipment, and I could show her how active that muscle had to be just to do that movement. She got an extension cord, moved her stapler to the front of her desk, never had any more problems. So simple things sometimes can make a big difference. I want to do a couple stretches, and I'd like you to follow along. I'm going to move over here so that you can see. And the first muscle group that we want to work with is the upper traps. Remember that they're the first ones that are affected by our posture. So if you sit in your chair, you can isolate this muscle with a easy stretch. You want to hold on to the chair, even with your hip, on the side that you're stretching. So I'm holding on to the right side of my chair with my right hand. I'm going to turn my chin to the left shoulder as far as I can. Any stretch that you do slowly because you don't want to tear the muscles. You want to gently stretch them. You're going to let gravity do the work. So with your head turned to the left, you're going to just let yourself lean, holding on to the chair seat, and let gravity carry your head as far as it will go. If you're doing it correctly, you'll feel it right across from the shoulder on up to the neck. And slowly bring yourself back up. Hold on to the chair with your left hand. Turn your chin to the right. Jonathan, before you lean, you need to turn your head, your chin to the opposite shoulder. Right. That way you'll isolate that muscle. Otherwise you won't get it. And then lean. And just give yourself about 15 seconds and bring yourself back up. Now, do you notice how it's different when you turn your head first, Jonathan? That it really isolates that muscle. Exactly. Now, the other set of muscles that we talked about were the scalene muscles. It's almost exactly the same stretch. We're going to do one thing different. We're going to move forward on the chair, sitting on the edge of the chair. And again, hold on to the chair, but this time hold on to the front corner of the chair on the side that you're stretching. And I'm going to start with my right hand holding onto the chair. Let your other arm hang loose. And again, turn your chin to the opposite shoulder. And this time, lean towards the back opposite corner. And if you're doing it correctly, you'll know because you'll feel the stretch right along from behind the ear down to that little dimple that is formed between your neck and your collarbone. About 15 seconds. You don't have to time it, it's not critical. Do the other side. Turn and lean back into the opposite corner and feel the stretch right along there. And bring yourself back. Good. Now, if you're having trouble with your forearms, your fingers are stiff, or you have those severe headaches, you probably want to do this for about a week, 3 times a day. Afterwards, you might want to just do it, when you've been working for a while on the computer. You can do it anytime you want it. It's not something that you can overdo, except you might not get as much done if you're doing it constantly. But it's a fairly simple thing to do, and it can really save you a lot of time in the long run. Sometimes people say, well, I don't have time to do that because I'm so busy at work, but then they spend 5 or 6 hours in the doctor's office trying to get some help, or they get disabled, or they change their career because they can't continue doing that anymore. So it really does give you more time in the long run to take care of yourself. Okay, any questions about that? Okay. Good point. Yeah, everyone should take breaks, and sometimes I know, not even being in the work environment, I get so involved with what I'm doing in Blender, I can, find that several hours have passed and I haven't done anything except focus on my laptop. So it is a good idea to try to take some breaks and to maybe set a timer if you're prone to losing track of time. I just wanted to cover what would be helpful for the shoulder area and the neck area and the resulting problems that people have with their hands and fingers. But right, very good. Okay, if you do have knots in your shoulder and you don't have someone else to give you some acupressure, if you can slide your finger down along the fibers from your neck to your shoulder, or from your shoulder to your neck, and find the place where it feels like a lump, you can put pressure on that for 10 seconds on, 10 seconds off, 3 times. 10 seconds on, 10 seconds off, and then 10 seconds on, 10 seconds off. What that does is that takes that area where the lactic acid has built up and the muscle has cramped so much that it's cut off its own blood supply. It forces the fluid with the highest concentration of lactic acid out of that area. When you take the pressure off, fluid seeps back into that area, diluting what is left. It's almost like if you have a sponge with soap in it and you're washing dishes and you hold it under the faucet and you squeeze it 3 times, you get more soap out of it than if you just are holding it and waiting for the water to wash the soap away. If you do that, though, remember that you want to use the opposite hand to work on the shoulder, because if you're using the same one, you have to tighten up the shoulder to reach it. If you can find someone else to do it for you, it's even better. So. Well, you don't want to be too high so you have to look up, but you want to have it so that your head can be balanced. And the way to find the posture for your head being balanced is if you can imagine a string attached to the top of your head, and imagine that string is pulling your head up. You'll sort of get an idea. You'll also feel that your head weighs less when it's in the proper position. So that's another way to judge if your monitor is in the right place. Something as simple as putting a phone book under your monitor is a good way to make that adjustment. So you don't always have to spend a lot of money for something expensive. Now, one more thing that I didn't mention yet was if you have an office chair with arms on it, get rid of the arms, because the arms are going to keep your arms up like this. And in the long run, what that does is it causes the muscles to shorten. When the muscles are shortened, then if you try to relax them, they feel tight. If you crunch them up, they feel tight. And your body doesn't have any sense of when the muscles are really relaxed anymore. So you want to have freedom of motion for your elbows to hang loose, and if you have the arms in the chair, you probably won't be able to do that. Okay? And that's it. We have another great speaker coming up, and then we'll be doing our closing, and I can't believe how fast the time has gone, and again, I want to thank everyone for being so wonderful here, and I'm going to miss everyone.
You need to get usernames or whatever you use maybe in the forums or Blender Nation, so that is who we really are for talking.
That's a great idea, and let's try to do that at the end so that everybody that wants to contact other people will maybe have a way to do that. In fact, if people want to have an email list, I'll put a paper on the desk, and if you want to be on the list, sign up with your email, and I'll make sure that everyone gets that. Okay?